Hi everyone and welcome from my kitchen. Today I want to share 3 eggplant recipes with you that I absolutely love. Whether you call it eggplant or aubergine or melanzane, I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy these recipes. They're all kind of Mediterranean, Italian inspired. So yeah, I hope you'll enjoy them. So our first recipe is eggplant meatballs. Here are the ingredients. Feel free to pause if you need to. Start by chopping the eggplants into cubes of roughly the same size. I peeled my eggplant because the skin was a bit rough, but you can leave the skin on if you have more tender ones. Then proceed to stir frying them in a pan with a bit of oil. Always be mindful that the eggplant is like a sponge, so it will absorb all the oil that you put in. Once they are soft, let them cool in a large bowl or a baking pan on the side. Cut your bread into cubes and leave it to soak with some water and/or milk or vegetable milk. Chop up your parsley and then combine it with the cooked eggplant cubes, with the meat, the soaked and drained bread cubes, the Parmesan cheese, 2 eggs, the breadcrumbs and your seasonings. Start kneading, and once you have a uniform mass, you can start shaping little bowls of the same size. Place them on a plate, cover and put them in the fridge for 30 minutes to an hour. In the meantime, start preparing your sauce. For that you can stir fry some onion dices with some oil in a pan. And once they get to that see-through look, add in the tomato sauce, some herbs, salt and pepper to taste and a pinch of sugar, and cook it for roughly 30 minutes to an hour. Once the sauce is ready, take a small part of it and distribute it on the bottom of the baking pan. Then place the refrigerated meatballs onto the tray and cover each bowl with some sauce. Cover the baking pan with some aluminum foil and bake in the oven at 180 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes. Our second recipe is Caponata. This dish originally comes from Sicily and there are countless versions of it. Here you can see the ingredients that I used. We'll need 3 eggplants, some pine nuts, chopped Kalamata olives, capers and golden raisins, and some vinegar. As well as 2 to 3 celery stalks and 2 to 3 onions. Start with the eggplants. I peeled them because again the skin was a bit tough, but you can leave the skin on if you want. Then proceed to dice them and put them on a baking tray. You could also fry them, but I wanted to reduce the oil absorption. So I just added around 10 to 12 tablespoons of olive oil and gave them a good mix, and then put them in the oven at 200 degrees Celsius for about 20 minutes or until soft. While the eggplants are in the oven, start peeling your onions, then cut through the middle and cut them into thin slices. After that, start cutting your celery stalks into thin stripes. In the meantime, get your eggplants out of the oven and put them aside to cool. Heat up some oil in a pot, and once it's hot, start frying the celery stalks. Once they're crispy and kind of golden brown and the oil has turned greenish, you can take them out and put in the onions. Stir fry them until they are golden and see-through. Once the onions were done, I got rid of the excess oil because I didn't want the eggplants to soak it up, so feel free to do that as well if you want to. Once the onions were done, I added the olives, the capers and the raisins and put the celery back in. I stirred everything for about 2 minutes and then I poured the vinegar on top of everything and let it evaporate. Be careful because it might sting in the nostrils, so you might want to take a few steps back from the pot. After that, add in a tablespoon of sugar and let it caramelize a little. And then add in the tomato sauce. I used 1 liter, but actually it ended up being a bit too much for the amount of ingredients that I had. So maybe start off with half a liter and then add some more sauce if the ingredients look a bit dry. Add around the same amount of salt as sugar and then let it cook for 30 to 40 minutes. After around 30 minutes, you can add in the eggplant cubes, and on the side you can start roasting the pine nuts in a little pan. Once they are kind of golden brown, you can add them into your sauce and mix everything together. Caponata is a perfect appetizer or side dish and is an explosion of different flavors. It tastes delicious on some toasted bread or crackers, either hot or cold. But in my opinion, it tastes best after a day when it has fully absorbed all the flavors and it had the time to cool off. You can place it in little mason jars and you can keep them in the fridge for about a week. They also make nice gift ideas for friends and family. So, our next recipe is Parmigiana. This is a very popular recipe in Italy and one of my favorite dishes. Here are the ingredients. Feel free to pause if you want to have a better look. I used 3 eggplants, and again I peeled them because their skin was a bit too thick. 3 onions, 3 cloves of garlic, a liter of tomato sauce, some grated Parmesan cheese, and a large mozzarella that I have cut into cubes. Start by chopping your onions and garlic cloves. So after I peeled my eggplant, I cut it into long slices that were roughly 1 or half a centimeter thick. I decided not to fry them and to bake them in the oven instead. So after I cut them into slices, I spread them out on a baking sheet and salted them in order to get rid of the excess water. You could also put them in a tower on top of each other. In the meantime, you can start preparing the sauce, and for that you just add some olive oil to a pot and then add in your chopped onions and garlic cloves. You can add them right away and stir fry them until they have that glorious see-through texture. Once they reach that level, you can add in the tomato sauce, cook for 10 minutes, and then add in your salt, some fresh herbs. I used basil, thyme, and rosemary, and always also add a pinch of sugar to regulate the acidity level of the sauce. After that, leave it to cook for at least 30 to 40 minutes. When the sauce gets that thicker texture, it means it's ready. So in the meantime, we pat our eggplants dry and get rid of their excess water. I will oven bake and pan fry these with controlled amounts of oil for a lighter version. So what I did was place them on a baking tray and brush them with olive oil, front and back, and then bake them in the oven. With the others that would not fit on the tray, I did the same, but I slowly cooked them in a pan. Usually in Italy, you would cover them in flour or sometimes even in a batter, and then you would fry them in oil. But since I'm going for a lighter version of this recipe, I will not be doing that. So these are the ones I prepared in the pan. And this is how the oven baked ones look once they get out of the oven. Now it's time to put everything together. So we start by putting a bit of sauce on the bottom of the baking pan. And then we start layering the eggplants. Try to alternate the layer directions between vertical and horizontal, not like I did in the video. After the sauce, add a layer of eggplants and then put on some sauce, the mozzarella and Parmesan cheese, and then cover it back up with eggplants and repeat the process until you run out of eggplants. The last layer will be sauce, Parmesan and mozzarella if you still have some. Either way, it's important that you put some Parmesan on your last layer. Put it in the oven at 200 degrees for 30 to 35 minutes. And towards the end you can put it on the highest rack so it kind of gets that brown gratin crust on top of it. Let it cool and then cut it into squares and serve. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed these recipes and I hope you try them out yourselves. Please let me know how they turn out. Feel free to share pictures and your process and let me know if you enjoyed them. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye!